Hello, I am Mark Mitchell, and here I'm doing another assignment for Tarleton Graduate School here. And for this one, we're supposed to talk about the similarities between English teaching strategies and mathematics teaching strategies, chapters 4 and 5 respectively, in Best Practice textbook. Okay. Yeah, this was fun. So let me get to it. Let me reduce this and so we can kind of see this. Just ignore these figures. I don't know why I put them. 3 similarities that I'm going to point out. First one, let's just cut to the chase here. I noticed that in both chapters there was discussion about, starting early. And you always hear it with reading, of course. That's the cliched, almost the typical, you should read to your children and read out loud and stuff like this, which is great. Yes, that is true. That's what you're supposed to do. And indeed, hopefully all parents are doing, right? However, I noticed that in the other chapter, it talked about those foundational computations, the times tables, things like that. I forget the exact phrasing they used, but basically I noticed that in both, getting an early foundation with the basics is important. Okay, so an idea for math would be that when you go to a store, any math, even just the simple addition, subtraction, hey, as we go through here, my son's Joe. So Joe, let's go ahead and I want you to estimate how much the total is going to be for this. And then he can start doing that and kind of get some of those skills, those addition skills, which are pretty important for finance and stuff for all your life, right? So yeah, strong foundation with basics is something I noticed in both. And I know it's not exactly a teaching strategy, but it's still something that is common for both of them, I noticed. The next thing, now this one is a little bit more specific. Authenticity. Both chapters talked about this. The writing one mentioned the strategy of having a real audience, right? And so talked about writing a real letter to a real congressperson or whatever the audience is actually going to be, but make it real. This is going to be actually read by somebody and you intend it. And so the authenticity, and also mentioned that in the next chapter, in the math, a real world problem, right? Because that's going to hopefully motivate students when they're actually presented with something that's real, okay? Not just something that's contrived. In math, we love to do that. We love to contrive. This train was going, this and that. But to actually have something that's real, you could really look at data. I know that I'm going to be doing exponentials pretty soon, exponential functions, and start looking at, let's talk about virus data of past sicknesses or whatnot, to see growth rates, things like that. So adding in some real world stuff can pull them in, and that's a good strategy. So that's the second similarity I noticed. Last one. And this was in both chapters as well, communication. And the the chapter for math mentioned is communication and mathematics. And writing, it's kind of already there, right? I mean, it's writing, it is communicating through the written expression. Both are important. And I think math classrooms are starting to realize how important this is, how much it helps. Because if you can explain something, if you can explain, square roots, the concept of square roots, and how it's kind of the opposite of squaring something, right? You square root something, and if you can get a kid to start talking about that, you can see some understanding take a deeper root when they can explain it themselves, not just listen and even do some work, but actually explain it. So I think communication is actually inherent in both of those. And that's kind of a third thing that I see that's a similarity there. And yes, I do think these can be applied to pretty much anyone that's in our class, right? If you're teaching or whatnot, we can do these things. Some of these things, of course, as best practices go, they can be harder done than said, right? To have an authentic task is not easy, but these three things I think are pretty good goals and things to keep in mind when teaching. Thank you very much.